So today is an opportunity to hear from the caregivers, because in caregiving, everyone becomes an expert. You're all knowledgeable because of the journey that you've been on, and you lend your experience and support to that journey, in fact. The questions that we will have for the focus groups today are as follows. We want to highlight destination. Where are you taking your loved one to? How are you getting there? What kind of transportation is utilized? Number 3, is the transportation system dementia friendly? What support are you providing, and what support do you need? We heard from Ms. Graves today and Ms. Sykes about support that is needed, and what are your recommendations for improving the system? So that's where we want your expertise and experience to be shared in a conversation, a 1-hour conversation. There will be a focus group facilitator at each table. Will the focus group facilitators please stand up? Okay. Okay, great. So we have 6 focus group facilitators, 7 focus group facilitators. Excellent. The focus group facilitators will go to a table. There should be a maximum of 8 persons at a table. I want you to stay in the exact same tables that you're in. The ground rules for the focus group discussion is as follows. Your participation is voluntary. You don't have to talk if you don't want to talk, but we really want you to talk because we want to hear your experience. It's all right to abstain from particular topics if you're uncomfortable. In these questions, there are not any right or wrong answers. What you say is valid, and what you say in telling your story can help somebody. It's important in our group discussion to know that there are differences of opinion. You may not agree with everything that's being said, but please respect their opinions. And what's really important, I know with caregivers, if you give us a forum to talk, we'll talk about everything related to caregiving. We really want you to focus in on transportation and respond to the questions that are asked, and your facilitators will support you in staying focused. And I want you to speak as open as you feel comfortable. At each table, there will be a note taker and a timekeeper. We will have 1 hour for the discussion. Following the discussion, the facilitators, I will come back to the podium, and the facilitators will come to the podium. No, the mic will go to each table, and the facilitator will report out the discussion at each table. So I want to thank you, and let's get started. There's going to be about a 5-minute organization time as facilitators come to the tables, and we have the notes at the tables as well as the tablets that are going to be at the table. So have a very rich discussion, and we will hear back at the large group in 1 hour.
Of the booklet. So if it's a $20 booklet, $40.
Good afternoon. So let us get started. I know that your discussions were rich and very, very informative. We want to hear from you.
Reasons that people use transportation, it's to get to medical appointments, to get to the grocery store, to help family members attend church services or anything like that.
The most popular, of course, was medical appointments. But the other top 2 appointment locations were grocery and banking. I also had a person at our table that is living with dementia, and her priorities were a little different. She wanted to make sure that she still got to go shopping and to get her hair done.
One of the caregivers at our table has a mom whose schedule is more active than mine. She lives in Central County, Mid-County, so that's close to Prince George's Community College. So you said 5 days a week, Esther? It's the swimming, it's the exercising, it's the church, it's the greeting at Walmart. Every Wednesday, did we say? Church every Sunday, okay? And it's the daily mass plus Sunday. So they are taking them 5 days a week, 7 days a week, and they're on call 24/7.
One thing that we talked about a lot were the jurisdictional problems that people have. If you live in one part of the area and your doctor's appointment is in another, then there's just a problem of how do you get there and what sort of arrangements can be made.
People are considered Uber, but also considered what kind of drivers and consistency and training that those folks might have.
We did have a certain number of folks who felt that they could not allow their care receiver to travel independently, so they needed to be with that individual at all times. And so then better understanding what they could take advantage of as the care provider versus whether they needed to be in their own vehicle.
And so it comes down to individual family members. Many of the care providers that you see here have positioned themselves so that they are all team mom or team dad. They're consultants, they are retired, and they are the sole provider for their loved ones.
There was a question listed about affording transportation, and that was the one thing that everyone agreed upon that they could not, especially when there were multiple trips throughout the course of a week. There was 4 doctor's appointments in various locations. It can be very costly to maintain this combined with social activities and the things that are necessary.
Access to information, knowing what's available, how you take advantage of it, and how you can optimize it for yourself and for your loved one was probably the key thing that we learned.
What happens when a caregiver can't provide care? So if they have their own health issues or if they need to take some time, they need a break, what sort of backup services are available there for them to help their family members or people they care for get to these medical appointments or just live their lives and stay engaged in the communities? That's something that we talked about. Another thing is just the time required and the information that people need in order to schedule these appointments. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of documentation, and you've got to make sure that you have the documentation, and if you don't, go back and get it, and then make an appointment again. And so there's a lot of this just back and forth.
And the recommendation is to have driver training, dementia-specific driver training.
And a lot of us were not aware of some of the resources that are offered in the county.
One of the things that was extremely important under the orienting was what they called the making of a travel kit that encompassed all of the things necessary to make that person's journey successful. Medications, a list of doctors, emergency contacts, incontinence products, things of that nature.
Making sure people come back with the things that they leave with, and the need for most people to be oriented and helped when they get to their location.
There needs to be higher levels of standard and an assurance of reliability for all of the transportation options that are available, whether they're the Prince George's County options or whether they're the Metro access, because not everybody can access all of them.
Curb to curb is a big difference from door to door. And getting the person down the steps or the ramp or even off of a curb for many people is very challenging. And sometimes with that level of assistance, it opens the availability of other types of transportation to that caregiver that now they have to provide because the door-to-door service may or may not be available.
when Metro Access or any sort of ride service comes to make an appointment or comes to pick you up from an appointment, they sort of have some kind of beeper or something that you see like in restaurants when it's your time to, when your table is ready, it'll buzz you. So whether it's an app or a phone call or something, so that they know that you know that they're on the way. And so that gives you a better sense of the timing involved, so you don't necessarily have to wait and get antsy when you're waiting for a ride to come to get you. And one thing that I also want to mention is that we talked about how it's easier to get to an appointment than it is to get home from an appointment. And I think that's an issue that a lot of people may have, but something that we talked about.
3 of us out of the discussion talked about people we knew that might join us in some kind of ride-sharing contract to a driving service with somebody we got to know well, screened well, and we shared that person among our family members that we were caregiving for.
Most of us subsidize our loved ones and parents. So we can't even monetize how much it actually costs because the people at this table are in it themselves.
I had a fantastic table with a variety of complex caregiving needs. We had caregivers who were caring for parents and the spouse simultaneously, sisters, family, another spouse, and a mother, brother, and sister simultaneously. So the feedback that I have is intergenerational in nature.
The impact, risk of caregivers' loss of job, risk of loved ones becoming lost using public transportation.
One thing we talked about is the importance of for caregivers to provide self-care and make sure that they themselves take care of themselves. We talked about changing your diet and taking yoga and doing a whole bunch of stuff to make sure that you are able to provide care to the people you are caring for.